Welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I'm your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
Hello.
We've got another interesting show, a little bit of a smorgasbord. We're going to cover more legislature. I hope we don't get sick of that, but this is the beginning of the legislative session.
Day 4 today, actually.
Yeah, it should be day 6, but I don't even get started.
Right, okay.
All right, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to have brain food, and I'm very excited. We are going to have Tony Gehrig, Fargo City Commissioner. We're going to be discussing what's happening on that side of the state. So first, last night, if you didn't catch it, and if you care about anything legislative, you may want to check it out in the archive. We did a video about how to navigate the legislative website. Right. We went over some of the basics on how things are done in the legislature.
I'm kind of glad you did it at the beginning of the legislative session rather than halfway through, so that's why people can
Thanks for telling me now.
I know, right? Exactly. Right. That was a smart thing.
So there's another sort of intro type thing I want to go through with you. For the first time since I've been around, 2013 was my first session. Again, we meet every other year, so this is my 5th session. We had a presentation given to us by Legislative Counsel. That's the lawyers that help all the legislators. Mm-hmm. And it was about where things are at and how we got here, which was fascinating to me. And there's background to it because there is a very strong interest to spend like there's no tomorrow. Right. And I think some of the leadership is recognizing that may be a little bit of a concern. And so to at least provide for some of definitely the freshmen, maybe not the complete veterans, well, actually also for the veterans, to kind of lay things out. Mm-hmm. I want to go through that a little bit with you. So Lori,
great.
Stop me, ask questions for anything.
Sounds good.
But I want to give, this presentation was very, very good. And I have to give credit to Legislative Counsel and Ellen Knutson who put it together. So,
terrific. Where
we are now, there's a little bit of a history. And where we are now has a lot to do with oil revenue. In the 80s, we had effectively our second oil boom.
Right.
The first one in the 50s. But it boomed and then it busted. And some lessons were learned because, of course, what happened is when the revenue came in, they spent it like crazy. They got used to their spending.
Then all of a sudden the bust comes.
And then the bust came. Mm-hmm. So what they did then following that in the 90s is they set up a permanent, in quotes, oil trust tax fund. And they also created budget stabilization funds. So the budget stabilization fund is, people use rainy day fund for everything, mm-hmm. but the budget stabilization fund is a fund that's there. It only gets up to a certain amount and it sits there. And if you ever run into problems like we did in 2017, then that's there to help bail you out somewhat.
Savings.
Yep. So that's there, and then they also did a stabilization fund for K through 12. So that was awesome. What happened, typical for politicians, is that permanent oil tax trust fund mm-hmm. became the slush fund. Uh-oh. So instead of one-time things, it just became a second general fund, basically. And so people got used to spending. They're like, oh, now we need to use it for all of this.
Right.
Okay, so that continued on, and then we hit a boom in the late 2000s. And things are going crazy. The money's rolling in. And so what happens, you can pick up this next graphic. In those boom years, the legislature, not that one. Well, let's talk about it. Keep that up. I actually intended to hit this one first. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the graph, the chart, which tells you where the money comes from, in which fund it goes, and to where that money then leaves the fund on how it's spent.
It's making my eyes hurt.
It's a very complicated graph. So I give it to you, or show you for the purposes of showing just how complex it is.
Wow.
But in actuality, if you get your hands on this, and it's on the legislative website, and you really start to parse through it, you can start to understand where all the money goes, but it's very complicated. I just want people to understand, you can't just give a simple explanation for where the money came, where did it go. So,
wow.
But now let's go on to the next graphic, if you would. Growing pains and gains. So in those boom years, and again, this money was unprecedented. It was unlike anything they saw in the 80s. And so what happened? They gave property tax relief. North Dakotans hate their property tax.
Right.
Yeah, except
uh-oh.
It was not a good way to do it. And in 2013, I had the fortitude, you might say, to actually say, this is not necessarily a good idea. What happens when you do tax relief the way the legislature did it, it was basically a subsidy. It was a buy down. What happens when you do subsidies? You get more of it. And so you subsidize property tax, you got more property tax because
Backfilling?
exactly the counties and cities backfilled. And that's why people's property taxes have not dropped down significantly to the degree you would expect,
Right.
because the legislature has literally spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to bring your property tax down. We didn't do it right. Next, it was, let's see, I'm going to go back to here.
You want to keep that up yet, or?
Yeah, pull it back up. I was using that.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
So we also increased, there was a lot of pressure to increase infrastructure spending. We spent $1 billion to improve things out west because the trucks were tearing up the roads and so forth. We also reduced individual income and corporate individual and corporate income taxes. That was nice. It was a small piece, but it was still a nice piece, and that's one nice thing that we really did that made sense.
Right.
And then there were other things as well. FMAP, if you ever hear about FMAP, that's the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage. So the feds pay for a part of our Medicare. And we have to match up the difference. Now, back in the 80s, I think they were paying 90%. We hit oil money, they started paying only 50%. So those are all explanations for why did our spending go up, except they're partial explanations. Our spending skyrocketed well beyond that. Government grew by leaps and bounds everywhere.
What years are we talking here? Is this 2017 to 20?
13 to 15.
Oh, okay.
Was the huge one.
Okay.
So 11 to 13 somewhat, 13 to 15
Huge.
Also huge. Actually, 11 to 13 was huge. 15 to 17 was kind of leveled, and it actually should have dropped way down. But then we've maintained. We've maintained that spending because we are addicted to that level of spending. So what happened? We then had the Budget Stabilization Fund. I'm sorry, the Strategic Investment and Improvement Fund.
This is so confusing.
I know. So we created another fund.
Okay,
Remember I
in
talked about
addition
the
to the
Oil
Budget
Tax
Stabilization-
Trust Fund
okay, right.
that turned into a general
Slush
fund
fund,
because
right.
it was slushy and people wanted to spend it.
Right.
Same thing happened with the SIF, Strategic Investment and Improvement Fund.
Okay.
So then we spent all of that because we overspent when oil crashed in 2015-16.
Right. So we were still spending at that level even though the money wasn't
Yes.
coming in, and then we were using our
Yep.
funds.
And then we also started using the legacy fund earnings. So there's a legacy fund. You folks created that. You voted it in 2010. 30% of the oil tax revenues goes into a fund for really important things, for down the road, for legacy, whatever it might be. That money has accumulated, and it starts to build interest, and it starts to build earnings because it's in stocks and bonds and so forth. So in the 17-19 budget, we started spending those earnings.
Oh, boy.
And in the 1921 budget, we spent almost all of the earnings. And so all of that money is being spent.
And so we got a precedent again,
Yes.
another precedent of spending everything that we get.
Where we're at
Okay.
right now is we have a big gap. All of that spending, we haven't decreased it significantly. We have a gap for our ongoing spending versus our ongoing revenues because remember, we spend the money we think is going to come in, not the money that has already come in. There are a couple of other things I want to bring up before we run out of time. It's important to know 28% of our ongoing spending comes from oil revenue.
Wow.
That's a huge,
That
huge
is a
amount.
large chunk.
That's a
Good
huge
heavens.
amount.
Wow.
And the things that were put into effect to try and reduce the volatility of budgeting on a commodity,
Right.
like the Budget Stabilization Fund, like the SIF fund, like the Oil Tax
Like it-
Trust Fund
yeah.
used to be, the problem is we legislators are spending all of it. And again, we're addicted to it. So now we're addicted to that. Now we have to start reaching. Well, what do we spend next? Because oil's coming down again. We've done everything else. Where do we go? And that was really the purpose for this presentation, is to explain to the legislators. Bring up the next couple of graphics real quick before we run out of time. These questions. How dependent do we want to be on the oil tax revenue? Another way to question that is to say, how much money do you really want to spend? And then these Strategic Investment and Improvement Fund, are we going to use it for ongoing programs, meaning basically a general fund, number 2? And then lastly, to what extent do you want to use the legacy fund earnings? These are things that are supposed to be for special, important, legacy, quote unquote,
Right.
things. And so you have to be careful in what we're going to do. Last graphic, the effect on the next budget, the following session, not the one we're in right now, but in 2 years. If we follow the governor's budget, we're going to be having a gap that we're going to have to try and fill in of somewhere between $1 and $1.3 billion. So since we're already using all of the other funds, the question is, where do we go from here? So these are hard facts the legislators have to give consideration to. It's going to be interesting because there is a big push-pull from legislators that want to keep the spending up and want to borrow, and those that don't. So there you have it. It's brief. I hope didn't run through it too fast.
Well, how about the freshmen? Are they getting a feel for that?
Yes, we're going to talk about the freshmen
we'll talk about
next
that
time.
next time when we come back.
We'll be right back.
All right, we'll be right back.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is changing to Cozy TV on January 18th. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. All right, folks, if I ran through that too quickly, it didn't make sense, just give us a little email, let us know.
The other thing they can do is they can just rewind it and watch it over and over again.
You can do that too.
That's the beauty
But feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. I don't, this could go into many shows, not just many segments, and I'm afraid people would find that too boring. If you have questions, ask. We'll answer them here on the show. Lori,
yes.
Before we bugged out, you were asking about the freshmen.
Well, I'm wondering the new crop of legislators that are in there, is there a feeling, is there a trend toward them? Are they more fiscally conservative, or is it a mixed bag as always?
It's a mixed bag. I think without actually even thinking of the individual legislators that are freshmen, I'm thinking of all the freshman classes. They represent essentially the makeup of the legislature
Sure.
in the sense that there are going to be some that come in and they have a solid foundation of these principles that would mean less spending, less taxing,
Right.
that kind of a thing. There are others that think that it's better. Government needs to do these programs. That's the purpose of it. Spending is good as long, yada. There are some that are going to be very heavily influenced by certain figures in the legislature, leadership, and they will do kind of like what is necessary. There are going to be probably some that have their sights set on a chairmanship and will just do whatever it takes to get there. Again, not thinking of anything in particular,
Right.
but that's just the nature of things.
Okay.
I don't think this freshman class is going to be different than
I was
the
kind of
others.
hopeful that maybe we would have an extra helping of conservatives fiscally for a change, but
Well, we'll see.
you'll find
We'll
out,
see.
I guess.
Yes. All right. So next, I want to talk a little bit. We alluded to it in the last segment that there is a strong interest in borrowing money to continue our spending, and we are getting it from the governor. We are getting it from some Republicans, and we are getting it from the Democrats. Different proposals. Now, this borrowing is called bonding. Everyone says bonding. What they mean is borrowing. In the governor's proposal, he proposes that we bond or borrow $1.25 billion. I find this very, very concerning. I believe, and this holds true, it doesn't matter if it's Republicans, Democrats, or the executive, we need to spend within our means. We need to live within our means. And this idea that we can't contain ourselves to the high levels of spending that we've become accustomed to over these last several years, such that we have to borrow from the future,
Right.
is ridiculous.
It is.
Now, the governor has a lot of pork in his, and so do the Democrats, and so do the Republicans. We can point that all out. I will give the governor credit, and I don't pass out, someone get cold water for Granny, she just heard me, I'm going to give a compliment to the governor. There's a good portion, $700 million of his bonding is to set up a loan fund, a revolving loan fund that counties, cities, and others can use to borrow the money, and then they pay the loan back to the fund. I think that's not an unreasonable thing. There's
Right.
another $550 million that is just the free gimmies, and there's a lot of corporate welfare in there, and there's other crap in there. Then
Explain when you say corporate welfare, for
Yes.
those people who don't know the corporate welfare speak, explain what you're talking about.
So corporate welfare, cronyism. Some people say crony capitalism. Let me tell you, folks, that's hogwash. There's no crony capitalism. There's cronyism and there's capitalism. Capitalism does not involve cronyism. So cronyism, corporate welfare, what that means is that there is some relationship and understanding between business and government says, hey, you know what, we're going to give you a tax break because we like you a lot, or because we want you to expand your facilities, or because we want you to move here. Fargo and Grand Forks were competing using corporate welfare via subsidizing property taxes, fighting against each other to try and get a company that was going to come in anyway.
Right.
These types of things go on all the time. Housing Incentive Fund. There's all sorts of these programs to incentivize. And here's the thing: government uses the term invest, and they use the term diversify. Government's going to diversify the economy of the state by investing your tax dollars. What the hell does that mean? What it means is they're giving money away because it's not theirs. What do they care?
Right.
And they get to be the big shots, giving it out to businesses that come and do what? I don't know. They may go bankrupt, they may not. But I can tell you one thing: they don't do things according to what would have been best and optimal according to the market. If you had kept the money yourself in your pocket, spent it how you want, buy a boat, buy a bigger house, buy a car, put your kid through college, whatever it might be, you are the best person to spend your money. Not government forcing you to pay them so that they can then give it to some business, some industry to try and do something that they think is best for the economy. That's such bull crap.
That's so good.
I'm on a tangent.
That's so good.
I apologize.
That's such good information, though. So we're talking bonding. So bonding, borrowing, and we've got BND. So we've got we've got a very unusual thing.
Socialist
we've got the
Bank
Bank of North Dakota.
Yep.
So that is, no other state has a bank that I am aware. I'm pretty
No,
sure
there
we're the
is no
only
other,
ones that
yes.
have our own. So those of you watching elsewhere other than North Dakota, we have our own actual bank called the Bank of North Dakota, and it's a very throwback thing from
Yeah, it started
socialist
in
days.
like 1918 from the Socialists who called themselves the Nonpartisan League and joined the Republicans. It's
And we
crazy
still
thing.
have it, so we still have it. So that's where we're going to do the bonding, is with the BND.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, they're going to facilitate it, and I mean, if you're going to do it, that makes if you have a socialist bank of the state and you're going to borrow money from your kids and your grandkids, hey man, that's a great way to do it. Go through the Bank of North Dakota.
Correct. So the proposal includes
Yeah.
a $170.9 million
Now,
gap.
yes, you're talking about the
Proposal.
Republican.
This is the okay. So this is the one that comes from. So I got this press release, and it was from Rich Wardner, and it says
Who's the majority leader in the Senate?
correct. And then the bill's prime sponsor is Representative Todd Porter of Mandan. It says in this release too. So the BND, the Bank of North Dakota, will hold the bonds. The proposal includes a $170.9 million gap bond to cover city and county infrastructure projects. You talked a little bit about that before too. But some of the things that they have in here too, it says in the very first line of this, state legislators laid out a proposal for a massive bonding program. And I'm glad that they use that word because it is pretty massive too. The header on it says $1.11 billion proposal would fund economic development projects and infrastructure.
Yeah. Yes. So you are referring. So when I was talking about the governor's proposed budget. You got a press release. That's interesting from Rich Wardner. So that press release is referring to the Republicans' proposal.
This is not the governor's one.
This is not the governor's.
Okay.
This is the Republicans' proposal, and the Democrats. The Republicans is for 1.1 versus billion versus the governor's 1.25. The Democrats have one for over 2 billion.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, hey.
Hey, shoot
If you're
for the moon.
borrowing, I mean, look
Everybody
at the
may as
federal
well.
government, man.
Right,
Why
that's-
not? Why stop there? There are a couple of things I want to point out about the Republicans'
'Cause
plan.
it's a little different from the other two.
It's different. Well, for one thing, they have very little that's a revolving fund. So almost all of it is gimme money,
Got it.
which I don't. It's a horrible idea. But there are a couple of things. One is that there's a section in the bill that says the section may not be construed to require the state to appropriate funds sufficient to make debt service payments. So the state doesn't have to make payments that will actually satisfy the required payments. It says the bonds are not a debt of the Bank of North Dakota or the state. The full faith, credit, and taxing powers of the state are not pledged to the payment of the bonds.
And to
Who
whom
the
are
heck
they?
is going to buy bonds at 1% when there's no guarantee you're going to get paid? Now, let me tell you, the reason why that's in there, I believe, is because we are constitutionally, I think, limited to how much the state can borrow. This will exceed it. They're going to try and get around the constitutional limit by saying, well, we're not actually on the hook for it, so it doesn't count.
Wow.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up with this bill is that there's a lot of pork in there. Now, there's some important things. So let me say that. There are important things that this bonding would pay for. Here's the scoop. Let's pay for them with ongoing revenues
Right.
and tighten the belt up a little bit. And the ones that we should have paid for the last 3 sessions, tough, you know what, said the
Yeah,
kitty. I don't even
right.
know if so.
Too bad.
But the second and final thing
Okay.
that I wanted to bring up is last session there was something called Operation Prairie Dog. We had so much money coming in that, and we didn't need to do like major state infrastructure. We said, you know what? Let's give money to the states and counties, and they can spend it to do whatever infrastructure projects they want.
Right.
And whatever they were going to spend on infrastructure, now we're paying for that, so now they can use that money to do other things, whatever it might be. Oil dropped down, as you know.
Right.
So the money for that was no longer there. So now, because the counties and cities were thinking, hey man, wait, what happened? We thought we were going to get all this money. Now the legislature, certain legislators are saying, don't worry.
Not a problem.
The oil wasn't there. We're still going to get it to you. We're just going to borrow it from your kids and your grandkids. They're going to pay it back over the next 20, 30 years. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
That's it. Bonding. Big thumbs down. Stick with us. We're going to come back and
A rant,
I'm
Rick's
gonna
rant
rant.
when we
I'm
come
gonna
back.
rant a little
It's
bit.
going to
Who
be good
knows?
today, I guarantee.
Geez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. I'm your host, Rick Becker, co-host Lori Hintz.
Thanks so much.
Somewhat ironic because I'm feeling a little insane in the membrane.
Okay.
Yes. So, Rick's Rant. So we set aside this segment for Rick's Rant. And throughout the day, it's changed because I have so many rants right now.
So many.
It tends to happen at the beginning of legislature and during COVID. So I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to start off.
I want to pick one and then move on.
I know. So, yeah, who knows? Okay, here's what we're going to talk about, folks, momentarily. Let's go back to the budget. Why am I so crazed when I am talking about needing to stay within our limits, needing to have a budget, living within our means? I am so crazed because of a document I had Legislative Council draft for me a couple of years ago and then had it updated. When you compare us to South Dakota, we're similar states. We have similar people, mostly rural. South Dakota has a little more people than we have. What's different about us in the last decade or so is that North Dakota has oil. So it's a great comparison to see what happens to a state, despite being red, despite having a supermajority of Republicans, what happens to that state when oil is discovered and oil tax revenues are coming up the wazoo. About 11 years ago, in 2009, let's pull up that chart. In 2009, if you notice, North Dakota is the red line, South Dakota is the green line. In 2009, North Dakota was spending about $34 million less in a year than South Dakota. Now, if you look over 2009 to, say, 2013, that's when oil was just kind of starting to come up. It was really increasing. And what happened? North Dakota's spending increased right along with it. And then things were looking glorious.
But look at South Dakota, how steady that is.
And do you know what? South Dakota
steady.
South Dakota is not in the top states for holding their budget low.
Wow.
No, they are not. It looks so steady because compared to us, it's ridiculous.
Right.
So look how we've increased. And I want you to think, folks, about that space between the red line and the green line. That space is the billions and billions of dollars that we in North Dakota spent that if we had been South Dakota, somehow we would have gotten by. So I want you to see that in 2009, we spent $34 million less than South Dakota in a year. Contrast that to 2020, where we spent in North Dakota in 1 year over $2 billion more than South Dakota. That's our spending level. That's what we're addicted to. Can you imagine for a second that we are accustomed to such high spending levels that we can't say, hey, yeah, I know we're spending over $2 billion more than our neighbor to the south for no apparent obvious reason, but rather than tighten our budget, tighten our belt, we're going to start spending more by borrowing. We're going to keep that spending up. We're going to borrow. Where are we borrowing from? The future, from our kids. We are going to be paying for this bonding with future legacy fund earnings. Now, some of the legislators, and I will say, the legislators, I'll always say it, they're not bad people. They have good intentions. They want the best for the state and for their constituents. I just don't agree with them. They believe that it's not a big deal to take future legacy fund earnings because it's not actually taking from the kids and grandkids. Let me ask you this. If I take your interest and your earnings on your 401k so that I can buy Lori a couple extra cars and maybe build her a side garage, is that a big deal? Are you okay with that? Are you okay if I took the earnings and interest from your 401k? Because that's not really yours. That's just future earnings. Ladies and gentlemen, we are taking from the future when we bond, when this state borrows. It's ridiculous. We need to stay within our means. I hope that if this resonates with you, you call your legislators. We taught you how to do that last night. Watch the show.
Right.
Call your legislators, email your legislators, explain to them that, yep, some of these projects are good. Figure out how to pay for it with the money you have. Do not borrow. They will tell you that this is the best time. We're going to actually make money by borrowing because interest rates are so low. And I'll tell you this, if we actually had to borrow, they are right. The method that they're doing it by not taking from legacy fund principal, but instead using future earnings that are bonded, the difference between the interest rates on those two things will in the long term be better. You have to go back a step. What if we don't want to do either? We are better off long term if you leave the principal in the legacy fund and you don't borrow from the future. That's the difference. There is no way around it. It's not a better deal. It's not cheaper to not borrow at all and live within your means. I'm sorry, it is cheaper. It's not more expensive to live within your means than it is to borrow under any circumstances. Things don't magically change from your own household finances. When you budget monthly, how much do you have? How much can you afford? Figure out how to make it work. That's what the state needs to do in this circumstance. I can't get behind it, no matter how good the intentions, no matter how important some few of the projects that they're planning to borrow the money for are. We have to figure out a way to pay for it with the money that we have coming in. Please, ladies and gentlemen, contact your legislators. Tell them absolutely not, do not borrow. If you vote to borrow money, we will vote you out.
Excellent.
Say it with conviction.
Well done.
All right.
Excellent rant. I told you it was going to be a good rant. I knew that. Okay, so when we come back, we are going to do a little brain food, and it's going to be a little kabuki. It'll be a little weird. Join us.
Howdy folks, it's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-boss and breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. So next up, brain food.
Brain food. Okay, so today's topic comes from a previous show.
Mhm.
Last night you said on your show, it's like kabuki theater. And for those people who have never heard that reference before and they're seeing me holding like a brush here too, I know that's related. But so he said kabuki theater, so I thought I would use that as my brain food today. So my brain food is kabuki theater, which is a form of classical theater in Japan, known for its elaborate costumes and dynamic acting. And dynamic, they are not kidding. This is kabuki, woo! Yeah, yikes. The phrase kabuki theater, kabuki dance, or kabuki play are sometimes used in political discourse, which is what you were talking about, to describe an event characterized by more showmanship than content. So more theater than actual content. So
Hey!
How did that get in there?
Kabuki twins!
I love that when you guys do that to me. Okay, that's kabuki. Now, I did do some further reading on dictionary.com, and kabuki is one of the 3 most famous Japanese traditional styles of theater.
Mhm.
The other 2 are bunraku and no theater. N-O-H, no theater. So I looked it up a little bit, so kabuki.
No
the
theater,
art, by
I
the
think
way,
that was very popular with the COVID shutdowns. There was absolutely no theater.
That's way too much.
Yeah.
The art of kabuki was started actually by a woman, and it used to be all women doing kabuki theater, and they would do it, portrayed both male and female characters and parodies and they would parody everyday life, and plays were witty and suggestive, they said. I know, very interesting. Kabuki theater.
Huh. I think that's the opposite of the Chinese theater. I don't know what it's called, but you know, the men played
Play the
all of
women
the women and
parts?
men. Yeah.
Isn't that
I don't
interesting?
know.
All right, whatever.
Future brain food.
All right, kabuki
Okay.
theater.
Next, for me, the Code of Hammurabi. So, Hammurabi was the 6th king of the first dynasty of Babylonia. And the Code of Hammurabi is important because it was the first sort of like, hey, here's a city, and we've got a system of laws, and everyone's going to follow those laws, and it's going to be better for everyone. And I mean, it really was. And we're talking, it was like 17 to 1800 BC. So law number 117, if a man is in debt and sells his wife, son, or daughter, or binds them over to service, for 3 years they shall work in the house of their purchaser or master, and in the 4th year they shall be given their freedom. Now, why do I bring this up? I am thinking, I'm looking for input. You tell me what you think, Lori. I think that if we put in a bill that if we go into debt, all of the legislators that vote yes on it should be put into indentured servitude for 3 years, and then on the 4th year, they will be given their freedom. It's just an idea. Let me know what you think.
It's the Code of Hammurabi.
Yes.
That's excellent. So as I was looking at my kabuki theater intel, and I'm doing my research on it, it occurred to me that I have a kabuki brush, and I realized, and I am a student of all things skincare and makeup and things like that. I've just always been nerdy like that. So I actually have a legit kabuki brush, and I use this. You can see one on the screen, and I use it daily. This is my blush brush. It's a kabuki. It says kabuki face brush right on that elf brush there. So I don't know if I look garish enough to be in kabuki theater if I put my blush on, but
was one of those two in the picture? Was that you?
I'm pretty sure it was not me.
Okay.
But sometimes I feel like that before I go on television, but when I'm putting on my garish makeup so that I don't look like all pasty and stuff. But this is an actual kabuki brush. It's just there's a bunch of different styles of brushes that women use, particularly for their face. So
well, I am going to tell you that I find that fascinating, and I am not going to tell you whether that is a true statement. Okay, next one for me is Proverbs 29:18.
You're reading from the Bible?
Yep, yeah. You want to know about the Bible? You just come talk to me.
Okay.
Where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint, but blessed is he who keeps the law.
Well, sounds like the Law and Order Party to me.
Yes, so where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. I'm going to go back. I'm a one-track mind. If you think, as a legislator, that you want to vote yes on going into debt, on borrowing from the future, it shows to me that you have no prophetic vision, because times are not tough now. I hate to tell you this. They are not tough. They're not even close to tough. And yet you want to borrow. What are you going to do when times are tough? You've got no prophetic vision. You're casting off restraint. Blessed are the legislators who vote no on borrowing, for they keep the law.
That sounds great. Sounds great to me. So now, if they would just take that to heart, just think of what you could do in the legislature. I mean, seriously, if people listened to that and kept the rule of law and kept things on the down low instead of spending like, well, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm
Drunken
talking about.
sailors?
You know
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All right, so let's bug out. Hey guys, can you bring up the quote? We missed the quote from the last one. I love Frederick Bastiat, and bring up that quote. That's going to take us out of this segment. Stick with us, folks. We've got Tony Gehrig coming up next.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boss and Breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota. Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Okay. Hey, guess who I was just on the phone with?
Tony Gehrig.
Tony Gehrig. Tony Gehrig.
All right, so we'll talk to him in a moment. I'm hoping here, so we're working on that for you.
Tony, come on, man, you're breaking my heart. Oh.
Yeah, that's one of those days. Okay.
Oh, wait, no, what? How is it? Oh yeah. Anyway, okay. I'm thinking of Godfather 2, Kiss.
Right,
okay.
right. So, do you want to start a little?
You want me to go? To
I do, because you
rant?
had a whole other topic that you were going to maybe.
I've got 10. Okay. I hate to take up Tony's time, but hey.
You snooze or you lose.
Okay. I have a bill to end the state of emergency that the governor imposed on us because of COVID. It is House Resolution 3007, if you're going to call anyone about it. It's going to be heard tentatively on Tuesday morning. It does one thing and one thing only. It's extremely simple. It ends the state of emergency. Because the state of emergency that the governor can call is designed to be very, very transient, temporary, short term. Because of some situation, like COVID, that comes up that he needs to do something. It's really primarily designed for like natural disasters. So that you can affect the adaptations for the agencies that you need to affect. We are now, at the end of this week, 10 months into the executive order for the state of emergency.
Natural disasters do not go for 10 months.
We don't live in a monarchy. It's time to end it. The legislature or the governor are the only two entities that can end the state of emergency. I brought it up to the legislature in November, and they were not inclined to take it up at that time. But we have the opportunity now. We're going to hear it on Tuesday in the House. It'll go over to the Senate. If you would like the state of emergency to end, if you would like proper governance on how to run a state with 3 branches of government and not one, give your legislators a call. It will be heard Tuesday. Again, we taught you how to do it. Take action, man. Be a part of solving the problem.
So
that's my short rant.
Is it HB?
HR, doesn't matter.
HR.
3007, it's all you have to remember.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm done. We got Tony?
All right, let's hope we got him.
Tony!
Yes, hi, dude.
Tony.
Okay, so give us an update on what's going on the eastern side of the state in Fargo, Tony.
As far as the executive orders go?
Yes, please.
Yep, so we voted last on Monday to extend our mask mandate.
Good for you.
Yep. That's a 30-day extension. That's the end of the state mandate if it were to end in, I think it's a week or 2 from now. So if Governor Burgum votes to end or just doesn't extend it, then the city of Fargo will extend it on our own, given our emergency powers that the mayor has been given for the last, well, how long has it been? 9, 10 months?
10, yeah, wow.
Yeah. So as you may or may not know, out here in Fargo, I've asked for 3 different votes to end those emergency powers. Just like in the state, the argument back to me to not end those powers was financial in nature. they would say that we would lose. We've been given some upwards of $52 or so million because of these emergency powers, they say. When we look back at how we got those dollars and what was required to receive those dollars, the emergency mandate was not required. In fact, we would have only lost $16,000 if we didn't have.
Wow.
So the argument that's been given back to commissioners that you're putting money on the line, therefore you're putting lives on the line, therefore you're saying that this isn't a pandemic, this isn't important. If you end the emergency mandate, that's not true. I want normal government back. I want for the commission to raise issues, to vote on issues, to have those debates. And then after we have that debate, after it's been risen, we have normal order and normal votes, and 5 commissioners run a city and not one mayor.
Wow.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And it's the same with the state, by the way. There's little to no loss of federal funds if we were to end the state of emergency. No difference at all. And it's not as though nothing can be done, that there's no longer going to be anything to do with COVID. The various agencies, and just like it would be for the city, the various agencies that are taking care of the needs continue to take care of the needs. We just do it appropriately. Again, you said with 5 commissioners. In my case, I'm saying with all 3 branches of the government and not one. So we're not saying that COVID is over or that it wasn't significant. This has nothing to do with that. It's simply putting government back in its proper role.
Wow.
I would like to say that the mayor, I think, has received the message to an extent. He did not need to ask the city commission, given his powers that we've granted him, to extend the mask mandate in Fargo. He could have done that on his own. What he did on Monday was he brought it up in normal order, put it on the agenda. We had a debate and a discussion, and we had an up or down vote. And it was a 3-2 vote to extend that mandate for 30 days beyond the governor's order. So to an extent, that's really good. It's a good step in the right direction. But it more so brings up the point of, why do we have the emergency mandate? Why do we have the emergency declaration in place then? We all know that we're available. We have Zoom, we have phones, you can call in. Having an emergency meeting is not a big deal. It's not like the legislature where you have to call everybody in back to Bismarck or however you guys do it. We can do it very simply, and we can have that vote, we can have that transparency, we can have that regular order without having the emergency mandate in place.
Now, the state legislature is going to be having several bills, and I'm almost certain that at least one or more will pass, that are going to rein in the governor's power for the executive orders and limit the duration. Have you considered proposing an ordinance or a measure, what have you, that would limit the mayor's state of emergency declaration or executive orders to a certain time period before he has to confer with the other commissioners?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I have not put forward a restraint. What I have considered putting forward is having different types of emergency orders. Right now, our emergency order could be for a flood, it could be for a fire, it could be for a riot in downtown Fargo, it could be for a pandemic. So what I believe is that we should have different types of emergency orders that gives him different powers, because we're treating COVID like it's a flood. And we've been operating under this flood type emergency for months and months and months. And that is completely unprecedented in Fargo. It has never happened before. And that gives the executive the all power. He is a king now. He does not need to ask me or any other commissioner for anything. He can make law. He can make penalties. He can shut businesses down. He can do whatever he wants if he so chooses. Thankfully, he hasn't done those things. He has allowed the governor to do that for him. But that doesn't mean that the next guy won't abuse those powers. So yes, it is my intention to put in different types of emergencies, call it natural disaster, then call it pandemic, then call it riots, then call it whatever you can foresee that would allow those different those powers to be. And then I think it's a fantastic idea to put a limit on that and have a revote every month, 2 weeks, whatever that is. I think that's completely necessary and completely prudent.
Yeah, I hope that you do, and I hope that it is successful. I actually hope the mayor votes in favor of it. I think that the optics of him voting against it would be pretty poor. I don't know if he cares or not.
Well, it would be nice to be able to have that flexibility too. I like that idea, actually, being able to say, okay, it's not a 10-month pandemic. You have your powers for this amount of time, and that's it. I think that's a really prudent idea too. That's a good idea. Are you getting some suggestions from the general public on that too? Any pushback from people on the masks?
Oh, absolutely. The general public, you know, it's just like everybody else, 50-50. You get a lot of great feedback saying thank you for not extending the mask mandate. Then you get the same number of emails saying how you want their grandma to die because you won't extend the mask mandate for bars and restaurants, which we know is completely absurd. 1%, 2% of people have been traced back to these restaurants and bars. The other thing I'd like to point out is that when we declare an emergency, the mayor gets to vote. That's 20% of the city commission right there who's already in favor of the mandate before it's even brought to the table. So he only needs to convince 2 other people in the city of Fargo that he should be the king, and he can have that going forward. I don't like that system, and I'm not quite sure what the fix is because there are only 5 commissioners. But I don't think Doug Burgum gets to vote if he gets the emergency power. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. I mean, It should be the same way for the city of Fargo and all the cities around North Dakota.
Can it be an initiated measure from the citizens of Fargo?
Yeah, and hopefully it doesn't get to that point. Hopefully I can put these things forward and it'd be approved, because I think you're right. I think that the mayor of Fargo and hopefully the future mayors of Fargo don't necessarily want to have these powers, because it's not, I don't think he's winning a whole lot of votes here. We are very polarized here in Fargo. We're a very purple city. And, like I said, half and half, depending on what you're putting forward, is being highly praised or highly demonized. And I don't think that's good. So I think that this has not been a good thing for the mayor. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. But of course, I wouldn't have asked for those powers, and I wouldn't have voted to keep those powers either.
Tony, thank you. Thank you so much for checking in with us today and giving us the eastern side of the state. We love getting the update.
Thank you very much, Tony. Tony is a pain in the butt to all the big government types and all of the cronyism in the eastern side of the state. So more power to you, man. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Rick will channel some Crowder on our next program.
Steven Crowder.
So join
Next
us
on
then.
Beck is No Filter with Debbie.
Bye.
Stick with it.